Hello, BookTube. Who's ready to storm into the weekend with some mail? Ordinarily, I have a few packages to show you, but I have a whomping pile of packages this time around, as befits a Friday. And this will bleed over, I'm sure, into Friday Reads. Friday Reads is a venerable BookTube tradition in which BookTubers talk about their reading week, the reading week that they've had, and make plans for the weekend. It's a little bit anachronistic. Most people that make Friday Reads videos have to work in one way or another on the weekend. The days when everybody worked 9 to 5 and had the weekends off, if they ever existed at all, are long since gone in the 21st century. But I like it. I love Friday Reads videos because I love to hear how all your reading weeks went. I don't often give stats on my own reading week because it's always so freakish. It feels like something that separates us instead of bringing us together. I had a wonderful reading week this week, but for me that means reading a whole lot of books. I read very fast. I read for a very large amount of every day. I do basically nothing else, and that allows me in the course of a week as good as this week, to do a reading total that's half or more of people's annual goals on Goodreads. So what am I supposed to do? I had a wonderful reading week, had some wonderful surprises, some highs and lows, and I plan on doing a huge amount of reading this weekend. I am now caught up. I know this is kind of pathetic because it's almost a week in, but I am now caught up completely with February, and I'm launching into March. I've been making great strides, inroads into March books, with a hope by the end of this weekend that I will be caught up. Basically, I mean, you can't get caught up. I'm as buried as everybody else when it comes to new books, but I'm trying to keep my nose right at level with the rising tide, and I'm hopeful. But these packages, all of these packages that we're going to open together, will certainly overlap with the Friday Reads, because they will certainly, I'd be willing to bet that quite a bit of what's in here will go on my Friday Reads for my weekend, for this coming weekend. I have two things that I have to read this weekend. One is a reread about UFO culture, and one is a deadline work. And aside from that, there's a whole bunch of stuff out in the other room that I want to read, certainly, that I will read, but they could easily get bumped in favor of stuff that we're going to see right now. So this doubles. It's mail, a huge mail haul, but it's also Friday Reads. And the first one is a tiny little package that it's got to be a mass market paperback, but it's odd because publishers don't usually send mass market paperbacks in mass market paperback sized envelopes. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually you'll get they'll come to you pressed in one of those big vacuum pressed envelopes. We have a few of them here that might be mass markets. Don't know what this could be here. Oh, oh no. Oh, this isn't from a publisher at all. This is from one of you. Oh my. To Stephen the Bean, enjoy. Okay. All right. Excellent. I thank you so much. You know who you are. This is the first fruit of a call that I put out on this channel. I very seldom do that. I bellyache about not having books that I want. But I much prefer the pattern where books are going out from here to you. You're the ones that don't get 10 books in the mail every day. You're the ones that don't have access to the Brattle Bookshop. I feel, and I'm the one who's always had an urge not only to recommend books to people, but then to put those books in their hands. So the idea of some people sending books to me is kind of counterintuitive for me. But recently I put out a call, and this is the first fruit of that call. The author, James Michener, I'm sure he needs no introduction even now, even all this time after his death, wrote a whole library shelf full of books. And at one point in the 70s and the early 80s, those books had a uniform mass market printing, where there was a monocolored cover with an oval smack dab in the center of the cover that was a picture about the book. And Michener's publisher did that with all of his works that had been in paperback up until that point, which was a lot. It was 20 books or so. And I have recently decided that I want to reread all of James Michener. I want to reread it in those formats. I had once upon a time, like everybody else in the country, 50 years ago, I had all of those paperbacks. And I want to reread them. I want to reread the whole of this author. I want those books anyway because I enjoy them. And this is the first fruit of that call. I put out a call that if you are in your local thrift shop and you see one of those books with this exact same setup, I'll show you what it looks like. Get it. You're not going to want it yourself. Get it from me and mail it to me, and I will pay you back in books. And this comes from one of you. This is a nonfiction work. But even the nonfiction works had the exact same cover design. This is The Bridge at Andau. And see what I mean? It's a monochrome color. I wish I had one other example here to show you, but I don't. They've all been moved out into the other room. With an oval right in the middle there that symbolizes the book in some way. In space, there's a rocket taking off. In Chesapeake, there's a goose in flight, and so on and so forth. And I want all of these. I want them all. So I am one step further. I now have Alaska, Caribbean, and The Bridge at Andau, and I want all the others. There was the big nonfiction one is Iberia, his book about Spain. It's huge nonfiction travelogue that is tremendously good. It's tremendously underrated in missionist work because people naturally think of, Hawaii and Alaska and all that sort of stuff. But now I have one piece of nonfiction, and boy, it's the last one I would have expected. Fantastic. All right, great way to start. Fantastic. Now, this next one is definitely from a publisher because it has the cover of the book printed on the envelope. And when you all send me a book, you don't go to that trouble. So let's see what this one is. Oh, what have we got here? Oh, look at that. Okay. All right. All right. I spoke too soon. Oh no, this is plastic with heavy adhesive, baby. But there are going to be envelopes for you. There are. Here, let's show you your fans. Oh, oh, who's that, baby? Oh. She's eagerly waiting for a package. She can't have this. This is a big, heavy thing. And the reason that I mistook it, I saw this. YA publishers will often make a fancy envelope with the cover and the title of the book on it. But instead, the publicist in this case, bless her heart, she just reached for the nearest sturdy envelope and stuffed other stuff in there. So that is not what's in this envelope. Instead, we have two things. One of them I requested, and one of them, this is not... oh my. Okay. All right. Wow, I didn't request this, but I want it. Definitely. Is this new? It is. Okay. All right, we'll show you the one that I didn't request first. This is a pretty thing. Boy, this is exactly how you do a paperback original. This is going to be a $20 paperback. This is by Eric Gibson. This is The Necessity of Sculpture, Selected Essays and Criticism, 1985 to 2019. Now, this is why I love book publicists. Because this is not, I did not even know this book existed. I didn't ask for it. But the publicist saw what I did ask for and thought, well, if he wants that, he might want this as well. And she's absolutely right. This is... So what have we got here? I don't have sheets for either one of these. Oh, and I just have blurbs on the back. I don't want that. The Necessity of Sculpture brings together a selection of articles on sculpture and sculptors. I love it. I love it. From Eric Gibson's nearly 4-decade career as an art critic. It discovers subjects as diverse as Mesopotamian cylinder seals, war memorials, and the art of the American West. See, I would never have thought of this. Art criticism, fantastic. The other thing I requested that obviously brought this to mind of the publicist is this thing by the great David Price Jones. This is Signatures, which is a collection of literary essays. I again don't have a sheet for it. It's as a child, the author spent time at Isaiah Berlin's house. As a teenager, lunching with Bernard Berenson, he prompted an outburst about Parisian anti-Semitism. In these pages, we gather at a salon in Arthur Koestler's home, meet the free spirit V.S. Naipaul, dine with Muriel Spark in Florence, and witness the generosity, candor, and mischievous humor of Isaac Bashevis Singer. This is only a small sampling of the remarkable personalities who left their signatures on a fascinating life. Oh, so this might not be literary criticism at all. No, this is just people. This is people that the author met. But I bet not. I bet not. How many people could he have met in one life? I bet there have to be literary reviews in here. Oh yeah, look at all these things. There have to be some literary reviews in here, but it doesn't matter to me. That is great. A double blast of the books that go in this room. That's wonderful. Okay, okay, fantastic. Boy, oh boy, what a start. All right, let's move on. This time we'll get a manila envelope for the little girl. Oh, but I think she's going to sleep. I think she... Did you give up, baby, or do you want this? No? You gave up. All right. She's fickle. It used to be that she would stick around to destroy things, and if there was the smallest hint of doing that, and would destroy my hand, would be happy to do it if there wasn't. But she's getting a little older. she's perfectly happy to just sequester herself and just watch the world. Okay, so what have we got here? This is another paperback original? Yes, a $17 paperback original. This is by Deborah Feldman. It is Unorthodox: The Scandalous Rejection of My Hasidic Roots. It's a memoir that I guess is the basis for a Netflix series. This came out in early March. Let's see here. Oh, this is coming to Netflix on March the 26th, a series called Unorthodox. And it depicts a young woman's life in Brooklyn as a member of a strictly religious Satmar sect of Hasidic Judaism. Deborah Feldman grew up under a code of relentlessly enforced customs governing everything that she could wear and to whom she could speak, to what she was allowed to read. Yet in spite of her aggressive upbringing, Deborah grew into an independent-minded young woman whose stolen moments reading about the empowered literary characters of Jane Austen and Louisa May Alcott helped her to imagine an alternate way of life among the skyscrapers of Manhattan. Trapped as a teenager in a sexually and emotionally dysfunctional marriage to a man she barely knew, the tension between Deborah's desires and her responsibilities as a good Satmar girl grew more explosive until she gave birth at 19 and realized that regardless of the obstacles she would face, she would have to forge a path for herself and her son to happiness and freedom. Whoa, okay. All right. And let's see here. She's been living with her son in Berlin since 2014. Okay, great. Wow. All right. Well, so this came out originally. When did this come out? This is the Simon Schuster's reprinted this for the show. This came out originally in 2012, and it got a blurb from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Okay, great, fantastic. Wow, it'll be a look inside that world of New York Hasidic Judaism. It's kind of amazing. I don't know how many of you have been to New York or gone in this particular way, but I am an old veteran of taking the bus from New York from Boston to New York. For a long time, there were totally unregulated bus lines, like the Lucky Star or something like that, or the Chinatown Express, where you pay something like $10 and you'd get a ride from Boston to New York. And the thing you were sacrificing with the money was any kind of safety. In the earliest days of the Chinatown Express, there have always been urban rumors that in the back of the bus people would have wire cages with poultry on their laps and whatnot. But when you do that, even now, when you take the regulated and more expensive bus lines to New York, the last leg of the journey is always on through a heavily Hasidic neighborhood, and it's so weird to see, because literally in the same bus, the right-hand windows, you can look up the broad avenues at towering glass and steel skyscrapers that are 10 blocks away. And out the left hand, you see Hasidic men in their traditional garb, having just left some sort of service or whatnot. And you know what they represent. You know they represent a 16th century world. A world in which all the things that we just read, in which women do not get to determine anything, in which children do not get to determine anything, in which all the things that you can probably guess. It's amazing to see that conflict. I remember what that was like. I don't know when I'm going to be doing that again. Believe you me, the next time I go to New York City, I have to work out the logistics, because I can't give up New York City. I did. For a couple of years, I did, when my previous dogs, my girls, were sick and then dying, which is two very different things. Any of you who've had an old dog will know that. Once that became true, I made a trip to New York. I visited my friend Sam and a bunch of other friends, and I intentionally said goodbye for a while, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to travel. I knew that I wouldn't be able to leave the girls, because they would need me, and they would need me they would need help in a way that I couldn't ask anyone to do. I couldn't pay anyone to do it. But that's long over. And I love Frida. I like spending time with her, and she would be miserable if I were gone for long. And I would probably miss the daylights out of her, but there's got to be a way. And believe you me, if I find a way, if I find a way, the ideal way, of course, would be for my friend Deb to come over here and dog sit. But unfortunately, Deb has a little dog of her own, and her little dog has enormous separation anxiety. He is a basket case of a dog. So it's a kind of a domino effect. She can't leave him, so she can't come over here, so I can't leave Frida. But I will find a way. I will find a way. I can't give up New York. And when I do, when I finally do find a way, I will vlog it. We will do it together. Won't that be something? Oh my. I'll use the tripod. The tripod can also be used as a filming. It has legs that you can just pull together. I will use it as one of those obnoxious filming arms and just vlog the daylights out of it, all up and down the canyons of Manhattan. Won't that be something? But in the meantime, let's go on here. Okay, this is a summer release, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this is April 7th. This is another trade paperback release. This is by Martha Waters, and it is To Have and To Hoax. It's a Regency romance in trade paperback that doesn't look anything like an ordinary Regency romance. You can't really tell, but I don't know if you can. Yes, there you can. It's got a very nice embossed cover, very lovely. So I know this is what it's going to look like. This is the finished copy, and the description sounds charming to me. Let me give you the description here. I bet you'll be charmed. 5 years ago, Lady Violet Grey and Lord James Audley met on a balcony and fell in love. They married weeks later. 1 year into their wedded bliss, however, they had a fight to end all fights and have barely spoken since. Their once passionate love match has been reduced to one of cold, detached politeness. But when Violet receives a letter that James has been thrown from his horse and rendered unconscious at their country estate, she races to be by his side, only to discover him alive and well at a tavern and completely unaware of her concern. Violet hatches a plan of her own, feigning illness to teach her estranged husband a lesson. James quickly sees through it, but he decides to play along in an ever-escalating game of manipulation featuring actors masquerading as doctors, threats of Swiss sanitariums, faux mistresses, and a lot of flirtation between a husband and wife who might not hate each other as much as they thought they did. Doesn't that sound charming? So this is in early April. I shouldn't have said summer, because early April will still be... April isn't May, and May isn't June, and June isn't high August, so April could still be miserable. April, we've had snowstorms in Boston. Well, we haven't had any snowstorms so far this year. Dustings here and there. So who knows what's going on there? I guess we all know what's going on there, but in this particular case, I'll take it. So let's see what's next here. Okay, no pub sheet on this. This is July. This is July 7th. This is Becoming Duchess Goldblatt, a memoir with no author on the title. On the front of the book here, Becoming Duchess Goldblatt is two stories. That of a reclusive real-life writer who created a fictional character out of loneliness and thin air, and that of the magical Duchess Goldblatt herself, a bright light in the darkness of social media. Fans around the world are drawn to her grace's voice, wit, and her life-affirming love for all humanity and the fun and friendship of the community that's already sprung up around her. So she's a Twitter personality? Is she a social media alternate reality? At Duchess Goldblatt. Oh, okay. So I'm going to have to find that on Twitter. At Duchess Goldblatt, 81-year-old literary icon, author of An Axe to Grind, brought people together in her name in bookstores, museums, concerts, and coffee shops, and along the way brought friends, real friends home, foremost among them Lyle Lovett. Okay. Okay, so the author of the book is anonymous. The real-life person in whose mind Duchess Goldblatt lives and flourishes has gathered all available truth and beauty for these pages. There is nothing else to give. But for Duchess Goldblatt's biography itself, I don't know this Twitter account. That's the weird thing about online, about social media inspired stuff like this, is that they're so famous in their own little sphere that you think people connected with they must be famous outside it, and they're not. I am the sun, the moon, and all of the planets to all of my faithful Donna Huguenots, but I assure you, The average person on the street has never heard about me. But Duchess Goldblatt, 81, is the inspirational author of An Axe to Grind, Feasting on the Carcasses of My Enemies, a love story, and the heartwarming meditation on mothers and daughters called Not If I Kill You First. A cultural icon, trophy ex-wife, friend to all humanity, and sponsor of the prestigious Goldblatt Prize in Fiction. She lives in Crooked Path, New York. She's fictional, but her love is real. Okay, I'm in for a ride here. I will study up on the Twitter personality, and then I will read the book. Her mother-daughter memoir, Not If I Kill You First. I love it. I love it. All right, let's see what this next one is. Oh, right, great. Okay, great. I talked to the publicist about this. It's got some schmutz on the cover that is obscuring the cover. I don't want that. Here, let's see if it'll behave itself. I talked to the publicist about this, and I'm wondering if I'm the only person on her list who's actually already read this book. This is a reprint, and it's a reprint by an author who you will know, but I can almost guarantee that you've never read this book. Okay, I think that did it. Let's get that out of the way. You're going to know this author, I think. I'm so happy that Harper is doing this, that they're reprinting this book. That's fantastic. This comes out as a paperback original in early May, and this is Tomorrow Will Be Better by Betty Smith, the author of Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And this was her second book that is stranger than A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. It's more assured, I think, in many ways. I find myself in this author. This author has a very small body of work. I find myself. I've always thought that A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was a little bit overrated. In fact, a lot overrated. This is more assured. It walks at a slower pace. It is a little bit more playful, in a grim kind of way. And it, for some odd reason, when it first appeared, critics just had their knives out for this. I don't really know why. Even I've read it a couple of times, and I've never been able to understand that reaction. I guess as a sophomore novel, it's kind of a natural thing. Critics who are bowled over, or who saw all their colleagues get bowled over by somebody's first book, some of them will be resentful at the second book. I don't know if that's an adequate explanation, but I'm so happy to see this. Look at that. That's a Brooklyn tenement, a baking under the sun. Let's see what we have here. Timeless classic is reborn. Well, I don't know about classic. You don't get to call something a classic. It has to earn that status. I don't think this has. But this was first published in 1948, and it's long out of print. It's a moving and unforgettable story by the beloved author of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Set during the 1920s in Williamsburg and Bushwick, sections of Brooklyn, which used to be home to real people. There are only real people in this book. There are no real people that live in Bushwick, and especially Williamsburg, anymore. There are parodies of people who live there now, but no real people. Tomorrow Will Be Better is the story of a shy, eager, joyfully optimistic Margie Shannon and her search for something better than the life of hardship and poverty in which she currently lives. All Margie's parents have ever known is an unrewarding life of destitution and hard work, a life that has ultimately worn them down. Her mother's resentment toward being a housewife and her father's inability to express his emotion result in an intense home where Margie has no voice. Unable to speak up against her overbearing mother, Margie accepts the life she is given but dreams of more. Young and just out of school, Margie holds steadfast to the unshakable optimism and believes in a better life is possible. Her goals are simple: to find a husband she loves, have children, and live in a nice home, one where her children will never know the terror of want or need or quarreling parents. When she meets Frankie Malone, she thinks her dreams might be fulfilled at last. But when a devastating tragedy strikes her new family, Margie realizes Frankie isn't the new key to her dreams. Her new life quickly begins to resemble the one she's already known, and her husband doesn't seem to share the same desire of building a family. Great. I don't know why. Harper would decide to do this, but I'm happy that they have. What did we mention? It comes out in early May, And it's a perfect example of what I mention on this channel all the time, which is that I don't need, I know it's heresy, but I don't need to go use book hunting for older titles because the publishing world regularly provides them for me. And I'm enormously grateful for that. I would not need to, I think that Betty Smith got better as she goes along as a novelist. I think her book Joy in the Morning is terrific. Better than this. And I think both of them are better than A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. So I'm in the drastic minority when it comes to this author. But how wonderful to be able to re-examine this book. It's been probably 35 years since I read it. How wonderful to re-examine it, and maybe the chance that people will write about it. That'd be awesome. And whether people, fellow critics of mine, whether we write about it or not, this is by Harper. It's what did I say it was? It's a $17 paperback. This will be in your bookstore. It'll be on the new release table of your bookstore, of your big retail bookstore. Betty Smith, her second book. So you get a chance to try it without needing to hunt for it in the stacks of your library or anything like that. You can just try it on your own and see. It'll be in the bookstore. That's wonderful. I wish that every book had a chance like that. But anyway, let's move on here. Let's move on to this next one. Noticing that a lot of these things have... a lot of these books have invoices with them. That's not the Mishnah book didn't, but a lot of these others do. They have invoices right on them. Look at that. He's not gonna. Well, it's not really an invoice. It's a bill of lading. It isn't levying a price of any kind. So let's see what the. Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. Okay, this is another work of literature and translation that we have seen so many of them on this channel in 2020. This is early March. We've seen so many of them, and this is another one. It's a big one too. This is the Lehman trilogy by Stefano Massini from Harper Via. Again, we've seen them do a lot of things. This is, I think, you have the artwork? Yes. That's what it's going to look like. I went to all that bother to show you a hideous American cover. What have we got here? A sprawling, sui generis novel in verse. Oh my God. Oh my God, it is. Oh my God. Oh my. How many of those have you read? How many novels in verse have you read? And have you liked any of them? I have such a long history with novels in verse. John Barth wrote one. Or no, it was John Gardner wrote Jason and Medea. A straight-up Homeric-style telling of Jason and the Argonauts, of the Argonautica, only in verse. And there's Golden Gate by Vikram Seth. And what was that? What was that Alamo novel? Wasn't there? Was it maybe Anthony Burgess who wrote an Alamo novel in verse? Well, anyway, I've read quite a few of these things, and I never know what to make of them. This is a novel in verse, okay? It became an international sensation, inspiring the Olivier Award-nominated play of the same name that opens on Broadway this spring, directed by Academy Award and Tony Award winner Sam Mendes. Written with singular originality, oh, yeah, okay, by Italian playwright Stefano Massini, this monumental interpretation of a great American story of immigration and ambition is now available in English, in a deftly accomplished translation. By Harper Via, I should not have to do this, by Richard Dixon. This is a translation by Richard Dixon. This is the chronicle of the 163-year multi-generational story of the Lehman family and the world-changing financial empire they forged. Beginning humbly in the antebellum South and ending with corporate collapse in the 21st century amid the world's greatest financial crisis. It would be 2008, the Great Recession of 2008, I'm guessing, is what that would be. The poetic narrative dances with rhythm and wit through decades of American progress and internal family drama. Good Lord. Okay, so do I want to know? Are you going to tell me? Or am I going to have to look for myself? I'm going to have to look for myself. Yes, this is 700 pages. This is a 700-page novel in verse. Oh my. Okay. Well, it's like I always say. I never know what I'm going to get on this channel. Never. So this is a 700-page novel in verse that comes out in early June from Harper Via. I've shown you a couple of books by them. These extremely distinctive review copies sort of stand out. They show you that you've got a Harper Via book in your hand. And I like it. Clearly somebody there has the idea to be just flat out ambitious when it comes to works in translation. But this year, just in general, has been so incredibly ambitious for works in translation. I've got more, so far, works in translation in 2020 now than I had in the whole of 2019. So, okay. All right, great. We've already seen this. I believe this is a double. This is Stephen Gill's biography of William Wordsworth, which will be familiar to some of you from 1990, 1989 or other, when this book first came out. And this is a thoroughly overhauled. The guy has hauled it up onto dry dock and scraped it clean and rebuilt it in the light of subsequent scholarship. But I think we saw this already. William Wordsworth was a man of many lives. Wordsworth within his friendship circle that ranged from shepherds to earls, Wordsworth among the ecclesiastics of the Anglican Church, Wordsworth in Cambridge and scientific circles beyond, Wordsworth among the painters and connoisseurs. This biography focuses on Wordsworth the writer. Timed for the 250th anniversary of the birth of William Wordsworth, this new edition of Gill's masterful biography draws upon the latest scholarship, including more attention to the importance of Wordsworth's sister and wife, and devotes more space to poems chronicling the second half of the poet's life. So I believe we saw this already, and I have since dipped into a small comparison. I was curious, and I had access to a copy of the original Gill Wordsworth biography. So I just did a tiny bit, just opening to parallel pages, just a couple of places at random, just to see how much was just copied and pasted from the original. And I get the impression, not much, I get the impression that often authors will say, this manuscript has been extensively reworked. They're just daring critics like me to go and find a copy of the original so that we can call them a liar. But I think this really is a reconsidered work. So, what do we have next here? Okay. All right, this is another Oxford book. This also feels like a duplicate. This is November 1918, The German Revolution by Robert Gerwat. And this is what it's going to look like when it comes out in it's Oxford, so it'll be very late. September. This is a September book. Oh my. Summer will be fading. I'm yearning for the summer. It'll already be fading when this comes out in hardcover. The German Revolution of November 1918 is nowadays largely forgotten outside Germany. It is generally regarded as a failure even by those who have ever heard of it, a missed opportunity which paved the way for the rise of the Nazis and the catastrophe to come. In November 1918, Robert Gerwat argues that to view the German Revolution in this way is a serious misjudgment. Not only did it bring down the authoritarian monarchy of the Hohenzollerns, but it also brought into being the first ever German democracy in an amazingly bloodless way. So this is going to be another example of what I always talk about on this channel, what pleases me no end, of an author re-examining something in history. I'm going to learn all there is to know about it, and I'm going to re-examine it, see if I can reinterpret it. I just love that. I'm on board. Authors don't always succeed in convincing me, but I'm on board to have them try. Great. All right, let's see what this next one is here. What is this? Oh my. Oh my. Goodness gracious. What is this? Okay. This comes out in early April. That's great. It's right around the corner. Okay. This is The King's Beast, A Mystery of the American Revolution by Elliot Pattison. The latest installment in the award-winning writer Elliot Pattison's Bone Rattler series, following the exiled Scotsman Duncan MacCallum at the aid of none other than Benjamin Franklin as he seeks to prevent war while tracking a pair of sadistic murderers and uncovering a wide-reaching conspiracy. He's not teaming up with Franklin, is he? What year is this? Past a certain point, you couldn't have done that with Franklin. He was a wreck, physically. When Duncan MacCallum is asked by Benjamin Franklin to retrieve an astonishing cache of fossils from the Kentucky wilderness, his excitement as a naturalist blinds him in his treacherous path. But as murderers stalk him, Duncan discovers that the fossils of this American incognitium are not nearly as mysterious as the political intrigues driving his mission. The Sons of Liberty, that, for those of you not up on your American history, that was the group that really poured fuel on the fire of American independence. The Sons of Liberty were organized long before anybody else was. I hope I don't need to tell you where they were born and where they were organized. The Sons of Liberty insist, without explaining why, that the only way to keep the king from pursuing a bloody war in America is for Duncan to secretly deliver the fossils to Franklin in London. His journey becomes a nightmare of deceit and violence as he seeks the cryptic link between the bones and the king. Oh, fantastic! This sounds great. I wonder if... why am I not remembering this series? I must have read another book in this series. Am I not remembering it because it has this fantastic cover? Is it possible that the Bone Rattler series had a different and worse cover? Am I that shallow? Don't answer that. Well, fantastic. A murder mystery set in the American Revolution. I'm all for it. Okay, great. Great. I'm just seeing that this video is going to be long. You know that already because you're seeing the finished product. So I offer no apologies. So we've got a ton of mail. Where else on BookTube are you going to see this? All right, well, there's SFF 180, yes, but he only does the mail haul once a week. Let's see. He's got a fully adult, real life detective. I don't have anything like that. Let's see here. What is this next? Oh, great. Okay. The other day we saw a murder mystery by Francine Matthews called Death on Tuckernut. It was a Mary Folger mystery, and it was the second one after a long hiatus, and this is the first one after that long hiatus. This is Death on Nantucket in a lovely trade paperback, and I'm glancing at it just quickly to see if I am blurbed on it, but I'm glad to have this because I know I've searched up and down for this, and I do not have this. And I want to read this Mary Folger mystery before I read Death on Tuckernut, just to get the old scent back. So great, that's fantastic. All right, let's see. We only have a couple more to go, so this might not be an hour video. So let's see if we can speed through this and get it done in under an hour. Because you people have things to do, and watching an hour-long video has got to be a hardship for you since I've forbidden you to watch these at accelerated speed, to watch them while you're cooking, to watch them while you're cleaning. I trust that I have your undivided attention. So what is this? Okay, all right. This is another murder mystery. Yes, it's a thriller. It's a thriller. It comes out at the end of March. So here's a perfect example of Friday Reads. This is something that I will read today. This is The Familiar Dark by Amy Engel. Look at that cover, huh? Drone footage. A lonely road in the snow. Let's see here. The Missouri Ozarks. And this is rural noir at its finest, focusing on fractured family loyalties, betrayal, and the burden of place on a community. Okay, so do we have any specifics? Set in the poorest part of the Ozarks, The Familiar Dark pulls back the curtain on the community and way of life that usually shirks away from the spotlight. At its heart, The Familiar Dark is a story about the bond between mother and daughter, the pain of unimaginable grief, and the power of home, even when home is the place you have to spend your whole life running from. I think we saw this. In advance copy, and this is the stylishly finished copy. And the author she's the author of the Roanoke Girls and the Book of Ivy series. A former criminal defense attorney, she lives in Missouri with her family. So it's a thriller, and it's for the date on it is March 31st. I'm sure that that's not strict, so it could be in stores right now. But it goes on the list. It and Death on Nantucket go on the list for a March Mystery Madness. And then we reach the box. We're at the box here. And then we'll be done. So, this wasn't that bad. This was bad, but it wasn't that bad. Let's see what we have here. Oh. 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 Okay. All right. This came out on March the 3rd, so it is another perfect example. This is going on the TBR for this weekend. I will get to this right away. This is a big hardcover, an oversized hardcover from the Royal Collection Trust, George IV, Art and Spectacle. There he is. There's the nincompoop right there. By the time he ascended to the throne in 1820, after 9 years as Prince Regent, this is the Regency period. This is the regent we're talking about. We're talking about the Regency period. George IV was already well known for his extravagant lifestyle. Visual display played an important role in his public image. Through the spectacular interiors of his houses and palaces, numerous flattering portraits, carefully choreographed state occasions, and his fashion choices, George IV attempted to shape the public perception of his person as heir to the throne and then as king. Talk about flattering portraits. This does very little to tell you the truth of what he looked like. George was the collector and commissioner of many of the finest works of art in the royal collection. He also turned Buckingham House into a palace, radically remodeled Windsor Castle inside and out, and built the Royal Pavilion at Brighton, famously, an Oriental-style pleasure palace by the sea. In London, his architectural vision extended to the design of Regent Street and Regent's Park. Set against the backdrop of the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars, and a period of unprecedented global exploration, this book considers the monarch's public image, taste for the theatrical, and admiration of French style. Okay. So, not only is this going on my list for this weekend, but it's also going to go out on the shelf for royalty. I'm not going to get rid of something as sumptuous as this thing. Granted, it's a more pointed study. It's not a full-length biography, but I have Philip Ziegler's biography of George IV, which is great, an absolutely great and revisionist biography, where Ziegler does his level best. This is one of the best biographers of the 20th century. Does his level best to make the case that George was not the totally irrelevant moron that history has consigned him to be. So I have that, but I'm gladly going to keep this. Oh my. All right, well, there you go. That was an extra big Friday mail haul. There's a reason why it was extra big. Partially it was because I had all this mail and I want to talk about it with you. But also partially the same thing as last Friday. Last Friday I floated the possibility, just the possibility, that there might be fewer videos from me on the weekend or none at all. And so I'm gonna blast you with some long videos today, just in case that's true. I just don't want you all going into some sort of shock or withdrawal. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. So we have George IV. What's it called? Art and Spectacle. Fantastic. We have The Familiar Dark, a new thriller. Let's see here. We have The King's Beast by Elliot Pattinson, a Revolutionary War mystery series. We have William Wordsworth by Stephen Gill. This is a revised edition of his famous biography. We have the Lehman Trilogy by Stefano Massini. What else have we got here? Let's see here. November 1918, The German Revolution. Tomorrow Will Be Better, a new Harper reprint of Betty Smith's novel. Becoming Duchess Goldblatt, a memoir, which is going to require me to do a deep dive on Twitter. I'm perfectly okay with that. Death on Nantucket by Francine Matthews. To Have and to Hoax, clearly fun-oriented Regency romance. Unorthodox, I guess that cover is from the new Netflix show about a woman who leaves a strict Orthodox community. And then two works of criticism to round things out. The Necessity of Sculpture by Eric Gibson, a collection of art criticism. And Signatures by David Price Jones, a collection of his encounters with famous literary people. And also The Bridge at Andau by James Michener, part of your ongoing mission to flood me with Michener mass markets. So this was a hideously long video. Terribly sorry about that. But how many new books can you take? I'll find out. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.